I am joined by Robert Griffin III, James White, Field Yates, Mina Kimes.
All right, so first play we're going to look at 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
What is going on, everybody? Mike Kadlick, Taylor Kyles here for CLNS Media, back with another episode of the Patriots Daily Podcast, powered by Prize Picks and powered by Game Time. And today we are joined by a very, very, very special guest. It's Daniel Oyefusi from ESPN, covers the Cleveland Browns. And I'd also be remiss to not thank a loyal listener, Dan Farris of the show. Had to give him a shout out. Daniel's old roommate put us in touch with Dan, who, like we said, was in Cleveland last season for what I've kind of considered Mike Vrabel's gap year sabbatical in between coaching staffs. And we've heard a lot about it, right? You know, he was a consultant. He did this, he did that. But again, Daniel was there for the whole thing. So we want to take a deep dive into that. But before we do so, Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. And how are we doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's kind of funny how this all came together. Kind of serendipitous, I guess, but glad to be here with y'all.
Yeah,
we love serendipity.
Yeah, exactly. So let's start right off the bat, right? I mentioned that it's this whole story of Vrabel taking a year off, learning some different, offensive stuff, defensive things as a consultant. But from your understanding, I guess, overview, like, what did Vrabel's role truly look like for this last year, working with Stefanski, working with Andrew Barry in the front office?
Yeah, so he really came to Cleveland, or kind of returned. He's an Akron guy, Ohio State guy. He kind of returned back in as a consultant role in terms of coaching, personnel, scouting, and it was really like the Browns saw it as an opportunity for them to bring in a very well-respected coach, coach with local ties, grew up a Browns fan, and just use him as he allowed, and use his wealth of knowledge. I don't think that there was a set kind of guideline or set role that they envisioned for him. He joined them around March, which was kind of prime scouting period. So Andrew Barry, the general manager, did lean on him as kind of an extra set of eyes, from what I've been told, saying, hey, like, can you look at some film of these guys, kind of write some reports, let me know what you think about those guys. And then as we got into OTA, as we got into the season, you really saw him as, I think Andrew Barry described him as like the world's like most respected quality control coach. Like, you saw him everywhere. Right. He was lining up in walkthroughs and install as a safety, as a middle linebacker. He's running with Jameis Winston and getting stuff over there. And at the beginning of the year, we really saw him work with the tight end specifically. They saw it as, a former linebacker, a defensive guy. They wanted to use his defensive expertise to help the offensive side of the ball. So he was working with David Njoku, their Pro Bowl tight end, and a lot of the tight ends. And as the season shifted, his role kind of shifted as well. Obviously that was a offense that struggled a bit, with Deshaun Watson before he went down and shuffling through quarterbacks. And the offensive line, which was usually a pillar of strength for that team, they were struggling. So they kind of shifted him, and he was coaching up those guys. And from what I'm told, I checked in with some officials, some high-ranking folks in Cleveland, and they said he had a really big impact on kind of stabilizing that group, so to speak. They did have some young coaches in there, and they had some new coaches, some turnover that year. But Vrabel was able to come in, really work with a lot of the young guys who were kind of the backups that were called into action, and really stabilize that group, specifically with DeJuan Jones, who's an Ohio State guy. They're really talented. Tackle. He was kind of struggling during the year with weight, with conditioning. They moved him over to left tackle. From what I've been told, they really credit Vrabel for kind of forming that relationship with them and helping him even through his rehab, because he fractured his leg in November, and he was lost for the rest of the year. But they said Vrabel was still working with him, helping him through his rehab. So the people that I spoke to said they had nothing but glowing reviews about his time, and they were like, hey, if he was still with us, we'd love to have him, getting ready to scout some draft guys, but obviously he's gone off to greener pastures.
And the Browns are pretty awesome to let him out of the contract and let him pursue another head coaching job, of course. Yeah. So I'm curious, you mentioned like he was working around, like doing different things with different people, and the Browns obviously struggled last season. But when it comes to personnel in the front office and building a team, they're one of the teams that's really at the forefront when it comes to that area. So I'm curious, what is it with your in-depth knowledge of the organization that sets them apart when it comes to coaching? Kevin Stefanski, coach of the year, right? Also personnel, Andrew Barry. Yeah, the Deshaun Watson thing doesn't look good, but for the most part, a lot of their moves have been pretty great. So what is it that makes them special, and what can Patriots fans hope that Mike Vrabel took from his time in Cleveland?
Yeah, I think back to a conversation I had with Andrew Berry even before I joined the speak. Years ago. He's a local Baltimore guy. I'm from Baltimore, and when I was writing a story on him during his first year, he spoke about how, and Kevin Stefanski spoke to this as well, about how the word alignment, like Andrew Berry was with that team when they went through that rough stretch of, I believe it was 1-31, 0-16, and everyone was fired, and he eventually went to Philly, I believe, and he was brought back. But he spoke about having alignment from top to bottom. So like an overall understanding of the vision, the organization of the organization, and how decisions are going to be made. And I think that again, the Deshaun Watson move has really backfired on them. But for the most part, this has really been, outside of this past year, it's been the most kind of prosperous time for the Cleveland franchise since they returned back to the city in 1999. A lot of that is just Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski being really in sync about the decisions that are made. And then obviously, and I think we're going to get into it a little bit later, but the way they've been able to kind of infuse analytics into the decision making, and maybe not it be like every decision is made solely off of analytics, but like using that as a data point, because like the film is a data point. You look at the film to study prospects and make game plans and whatnot, but then you bring in the numbers to kind of give you another piece of information that can help you into your decision making. So I think that with Vrabel given an opportunity to not only spend time with the coaching staff but with the front office and have those conversations, he kind of, I think it was really mutually beneficial because they were able to tap into his wealth of knowledge, but then he was able to kind of see how another organization goes about its business and maybe take some bits and pieces, here and there, even though it wasn't the most successful season on the field.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Were Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski didn't come in at the same time, right?
They did.
Oh, they did. Okay, so I kind of want to build off that then, because Elliot Wolf is in the front office right now for the Patriots. He's their vice president of player personnel, and obviously Mike Vrabel comes in as head coach, but a year after. So they're on kind of different paths. And you mentioned having that organizational kind of North Star shared vision. How difficult do you think that can be when a guy in Vrabel has to come in and sort of work with a different front office and not being on the same page? Like, I look at it and, Stefanski and Berry come in at the same time. The Niners come in, John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan come in at the same time. When you're on sort of different pathways, how difficult can it be? Do you think it can work? And Vrabel mentioned that too in his opening press conference with the Patriots, where we don't always have to be on the same page, but we want to work together to disagree, but disagree in sort of a constructive way.
Yeah, that last point was really key, because I think that's a big thing in Cleveland, where it's not necessarily that everyone is agreeing every single step of the way, but there is an organizational alignment that like, hey, this is how we're going to go about it, and we're going to make sure that we're all on the same page and do our best to get the intended outcome. And overall, that's a really good question, because we know how his time in Tennessee ended with the change in general manager and in the front office and whatnot. I'd like to think that as part of the discussions that Vrabel had with ownership, with the powers that be over in New England, there was that kind of understanding of how that relationship was going to work, how decision making was going to be made, and I would think that, like, especially after things ended in Tennessee, he wouldn't step into a new opportunity without really having a clear understanding of everyone's roles and a kind of hierarchy and ranking in the organization. So I really don't have a ton of worries about that per se.
That's good to know. Go ahead.
As a quick follow-up to that, I was wondering, in Cleveland, who does have final say? Like you said, there needs to be a difference of opinion, but somebody's got to be, the final decision maker. So is that Stefanski? Does he say, hey, Andrew, that's on you? Where exactly, is that last chain of command?
Yeah, that's a point of contention in Cleveland right now, especially with everyone trying to wonder what happened with Deshaun. But I will say, like, they do have it pretty set that, like, the coaching decisions are Kevin Stefanski. When it comes to making decisions on game plan, on hiring coaches, his staff, that's Kevin Stefanski. In terms of, player acquisition, player personnel, like, Andrew Berry is the final, he has final say on that. But obviously, like, they always say, like, we always talk. Like, Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, they say we always have those deliberations and those conversations. But when it comes to actual player personnel, Andrew Berry is the guy that's leading that effort.
Interesting. All right. You mentioned analytics earlier. I want to kind of dive into that now, because that seems to be at the forefront of this Cleveland Browns team. It's been raved about it. Paul DePodesta, the baseball guy, comes in and sort of is running their analytics department. Yeah. The Patriots just brought in Joe McDonald from the Red Sox. So there's this sort of baseball side of the numbers game that both teams are now using. What is it about this raved about analytics department in Cleveland that works so well, and why are they seemingly like on top of this numbers game in football?
I mean, truthfully, it's the numbers game is the numbers game. The fact that they have the biggest staff in the NFL. Every year or for the past couple of years, ESPN has been publishing a story on a poll of the analytics departments across the NFL, and when you hear the responses and what people are saying across the league, it's like Cleveland just has so much invested. Obviously, that kind of starts with Paul DePodesta as the chief strategy officer, and it's kind of a nebulous title, honestly, in Cleveland. People are wondering like if he's like a shadow GM or like what is he doing. But then you go down and they have just so many people in various analytical titles who are cranking out information and statistics, whether that's contributing to coaching, to game planning, to training, to scouting. And again, it's not so much that like they're just making decisions solely based on the analytics, but they're using those analytics and marrying it with the scouting process as an additional data point and a reference point, so you can make the best decisions possible. And again, this past season really backfired on the Browns, but it's hard to not look at their overall body of work since that duo came in, Kevin Stefanski, Andrew Berry in 2020, and they've kind of started to implement this vision that they've had. We've seen 2 playoff appearances, a playoff win, and a lot more success than the Browns of maybe your dad's days or maybe your brother's days.
Our days, to be honest.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh man, they if only they kept that Baker Mayfield down there killing it in Tampa Bay. But hey, no, you're right. I mean, I think outside of that quarterback decision, it really has been a complete 180 for that Cleveland team since the 1-32 days. So looking forward to seeing what Vrabel can do and bring over analytics wise from that team. We're gonna wrap up our conversation with Daniel on the Browns, but first, a quick word from our friends over at PrizePicks. We'll be right back. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all, and all you have to do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks, and the big game in the NFL is almost here, which means it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last football game of the season with PrizePicks, the best place to win cash while watching the game. PrizePicks is also giving away a free pick for the big game, where one of the starting quarterbacks will only need to throw for 1 yard to win. And if you're correct on at least one more stat projection, you will win real cash. So sign up today on the PrizePicks app. You'll get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So make sure you sign up today, download the app, and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Taylor, I know I mentioned on yesterday's show about my PrizePicks lineup and how I was going to get back to it with the Celtics. Unfortunately, 0-2. So we got to get back to it.
Jeez.
Got to get back to it for Conference Championship weekend. We'll have our picks coming out every single week here on Patriots Daily. So if you want to join in the fun, head over, use code CLNS. You get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup.
So, Daniel, you mentioned player acquisition. You mentioned coach hiring. Are there any players or coaches that you think Mike Vrabel might end up poaching from Cleveland? Tommy Rees obviously was the headliner. He has now been promoted offensive coordinator, so he's out of the running. But were there any connections? I know DeJuan Jones, but he's probably going to be there for a while, sit on his rookie deal. Was there any connections he made that kind of stood out that was like, if Mike Vrabel gets another head coaching job, that person just might follow him to wherever he goes?
Yeah, Tommy Rees was obviously the one that we were all kind of watching for in Cleveland, and from what I was told, there was some real interest, mutually potentially, but obviously Cleveland and Stefanski made sure to kind of give him that promotion real quick. The thing about the Vrabel's time in Cleveland is like he didn't come in with a ton of connections. I think that the connections that he did have were specifically Bubba Ventrone, the special teams coach and assistant head coach. So it's kind of tough to kind of give him a promotion. I'm not sure if there's anything left there for him. So it was going to be tough to take him. Jim Schwartz, who he actually brought on in a sort of consultant role years ago. He's a defensive coordinator, so it's going to be tough to take him away. But player wise, the Browns don't have a ton of kind of marquee names or anybody out there set to hit free agency outside of maybe Nick Chubb. But if we're kind of staying on the theme of him working with the offensive line. Jedrick Wills is set to be his contract's going to void, so he's going to be an unrestricted free agent. He's a former 4th round pick. Top 15, 12 picks, so I believe. The past couple years he's been hurt and he hasn't been as consistent, but he does still have that pedigree and the physical ability. I'm not sure how much Vrabel got to work with him just because he was in and out the lineup so much. But looking at the Patriots' needs, offensive line, tackle, that's something that they're going to look to upgrade. He's a guy that I think that if you want to take a flyer on just the youth, the physical skill set, and maybe it can blossom into something and you kind of get a bang for your buck. He's a guy that maybe he could take over to New England.
Kind of reminds me of Mekhi Becton a little bit, like the guy with the pedigree, got hurt, didn't live up to it, but probably isn't going to be very expensive for all those reasons. Hopefully wherever he goes, he can put it together and the young man can find some success.
Exactly.
So before we let you go and get you out of here, Daniel, from the outside looking in, I just have one last question. With what you've seen from Drake May, with what you've seen from Mike Vrabel in Cleveland, can you give Patriots fans some hope? Was this the right hire? Should they have went Ben Johnson? Was Mike Vrabel, again, from what you've heard and what you've seen, do you think this can be successful and the Patriots can actually turn this around with him as a head coach once again?
I mean, I'll be honest. I'll be honest. I've been telling a lot of my friends, a lot of people, I've been telling Dan, I'm expecting at least 8 or 9 wins next year. If Drake, and I see it this way. If Drake May is the guy that we all expect him to be as a top pick in last year's draft, you got so many resources. I'm not sure exactly the exact amount of cap space, but they're going to be able to make some moves. And then you're going to have some high draft picks. Vrabel is a guy. He's a floor raiser, I believe. You look back to what he did in Tennessee, kind of taking teams that maybe didn't have the most talent, but being a tough physical team, being able to grind out wins. If they're able to kind of hit on some pieces in free agency, hit on some pieces in the draft, and then you surround him, Drake May specifically, I'm speaking about, with the right infrastructure in terms of and the skills players, I think that we could see. I mean, we've seen the past couple of years with the Commanders, with the Broncos, with teams like that, where you go from 3, 4, 5, 6 wins, and then you're, in the playoffs. I see no reason why the Patriots can't do that in 2025.
That was awesome. Awesome.
That's exciting. Well, thank you so much.
People needed.
This was fun. We appreciate the insight. We appreciate the info. One more thing before we let you get out of here. Where can people find you? I know you have a ton of great stuff on the Cleveland Browns. What are you up to? Where do we follow you? And where do we find all your good stuff?
Yeah, you can find all my work at ESPN.com. Follow me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, at Daniel Oyefusi, just like you see right below me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was fun. Thank you for joining us, Daniel. And hopefully, again, if there's some Cleveland Browns connection, maybe a game coming up. I don't know if they play this year, but
I think they do. I believe they do.
Let's go.
We'll get you back on the show. We'll do a joint preview. We'll talk about Pats versus Browns. So thank you again.
Hope we'll meet in person as well.
Yeah,
most
sure.
definitely. Most definitely.
All right.
Thanks so much, Daniel. Appreciate you.
See it.
Bye now. All right. That was cool. Taylor, any quick thoughts? We're going to actually, to give you guys some figure out who's here and who's listening live, we're going to hit on a couple more quick Patriots news and notes that have happened today and yesterday. But first of all, Taylor, thoughts from Daniel. What do you think? Does it give you any more hope about Mike Vrabel and what's going to happen with the Pats here?
Daniel's awesome. Honestly, I love the little family that we have here, and a little quilt of different guests, everything over at Pat's Daily. But it does give me a little bit more hope. A lot of it is kind of what I was hoping with the analytics, where because the Browns just have so many resources, you would hope that being there and being exposed to would help them out a little bit. Jedrick Wills, honestly, the profile that he gave made me a little more optimistic that the Patriots could, if they didn't want to, blow a ton of money on left tackle necessarily, he could be an option, maybe a little bit more affordable. But what did you think? I'm curious, because a lot of it was what I was hoping to hear.
Yeah.
And not a whole lot that scared me, which is nice. But what did you think? Because you're better at spotting the red flags.
So I like not hearing the red flags, right? I like how, being so in the New England ecosystem, it's we'll bring Vrabel back and bring McDaniels back because there are guys, and people hate that. It's like, go get some outside perspective. But I think it's good not only that Vrabel has that outside perspective, but that somebody who watched him and saw what happened with him throughout the entire 2024 season actually sees as well that, it's not just some local Patriots person who we're taking for, taking their opinion on Vrabel, right? He actually saw it last year. It's not And he had nothing bad to say. It was, Vrabel's a cold. I like the floor raiser too. Like that, he's going to come in here, 8 or 9 wins, and here we go. So definitely some good stuff there. So again, we appreciate Daniel joining us. We'll have him on before the Cleveland Browns game next season.
I'm excited.
And we'll have some fun. All right, let's get to the news and notes for the Patriots. And we'll start with we'll start most recent. Terrell Williams. According to Matt Zenitz of CBS Sports and 24/7 Sports, he's been involved in the college game a lot, but he has a recent report that the Patriots are targeting Lions defensive line coach Terrell Williams to be their next defensive coordinator under Mike Vrabel. So that seems to be the report. I don't know if anybody else has confirmed it just yet, but it kind of felt like this is where it was going all along. So we do have DC involved.
Was Mike the first to Mike Reese, was he the first to directly report that he was the Patriots' top target?
I believe
he was. And then it was Ryan Crow, Bobby King, and then there was one more name in there as well. But yeah, Terrell Williams, because he was the assistant head coach under Vrabel, seems like someone he values pretty highly. Although I do know Ryan Crow, Ohio State guy. They were together at Ohio State and Tennessee, those connections. He also seems like a very well-respected coach. I saw him. There was a video of him addressing Ohio State, and the command that he had and the way the players were responding to him in like little huddle after practice or something was pretty significant. I feel like he's another guy that they'll at least want to join the staff. Also, Miami could block them, I think, from interviewing him if they want. Right. Division rival. But yeah, Terrell Williams just makes the most sense.
100%. All right, let's get to the offensive coordinator news in a second. But first, a quick word from our friends at Game Time. We'll be right back. This episode is also powered by Game Time, the best place to get tickets to anything, concerts, games, and more. They have the Game Time Picks feature that makes getting tickets even easier. It filters out the fluff and only shows you incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find the best value. They also have the lowest price guarantee, and they have seat views to check out exactly what it's going to look like from your seat. So make sure you download the Game Time app today to take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Why does your camera do that?
This damn camera.
It's the eyes on your Funko Pop.
You should have seen during the break. I wasn't paying attention. I was like texting you on either screen. I look up and it's just my eyes.
That is so funny. Oh my God. Well, head over to Game.
Actually, Terrell Williams, before we move on, this is my get out of jail free card. Actually, do you have to read this?
I was just going to say, head over to Game Time, use that code CLNS, get those $20 off your first purchase. Terms always apply.
God, this freaking thing in my eyes. Stop moving.
It's distracting me, but Game Time, do it. All-in price. That's it. I always talk about the all-in price, but it's the best thing because I hate those damn fees at the end. But you don't have those with Game Time if you turn on that feature. So head over there, use that code CLNS. You get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right, Taylor, what do you got for us on Terrell Williams before we move on to the rest of the OC search?
Another thing was Mike Vrabel, in addition to making him the assistant head coach, actually let him be the head coach for a preseason game. I forgot about that, but I do remember him doing the press conference where he said that he thanked Mike and said, this is pretty awesome that I'm even getting this opportunity. So that's another kind of piece I wanted to throw in the ring there. These two are very well connected. I know that there's a chance that Detroit could also promote him, but I would be pretty stunned if he doesn't go back with Vrabel, considering how much respect they clearly have for each other.
I think so too. It seems like the right choice. It sounds like he's going to be coming this way. I know that the Crow interview was just a request, right? That hasn't actually taken place.
Just a request.
So interesting. So, I mean, it makes the most sense. There's the connection there. I do feel bad for Dan Campbell and the Lions. There has just been an attrition of coaches there. It sounds like Aaron Glenn's probably going to go to the Jets today. Ben Johnson obviously went to Chicago, and Terrell Williams losing that type of leader along their defensive line. It's tough stuff, but sounds good for the Patriots, someone who Vrabel knows and trusts. We do have other offensive coordinator news today as well. Sports Illustrated's Albert Breer reports that Grant Udinski is interviewing has already interviewed for the Patriots offensive coordinator job. That is the third known candidate, along with Thomas Brown and Marcus Brady. Udinski has worked with the Minnesota Vikings for the last couple seasons directly under head coach Kevin O'Connell. He was the assistant to O'Connell in his first season, has moved on to assistant quarterbacks coach and assistant offensive coordinator this year with Josh McCown. So they are there working together, and it sounds like he is on the Patriots' radar. So what do you make of this move? What do you make of the fact that we haven't heard much on the Josh McDaniels front just yet, and they're still slowly trickling in these candidates for OC?
I would hope that we're not hearing anything about Josh because they're trying to be smart and not just like throwing his name out there and making it very obvious he's their guy if he in fact is. But I do like the interview because I like that it's another coach who has experience, not only working with an offense, coordinating an offense and all that, but also actually working with quarterbacks. Like I said, I think that's going to be critical for whoever takes over this offensive coordinator job. And also someone that, as Evan Lazar pointed out, because he knows much more about league-wide coaching staffs than I do, this is a guy that the Vikings have been trying to make sure they kept in-house. So the Vikings are holding him in that high esteem. Clearly, he's a guy who's doing quite a bit for them, wears a lot of hats. So I like it. If he's one of the next up-and-coming, stars on offense, again, I really like the idea of a Josh McDaniels who's never going to leave. But if it's a guy who can bring innovation to your offense, maybe he can create his own little pipeline. It's not the worst thing in the world. But obviously with Mike Vrabel's history of actually hiring offense coordinators, not just promoting them from within, it makes you a little nervous.
I think so too. And I want to correct myself. I did say that McCown's the OC there. He is the quarterback's coach. It's Wes Phillips, who is the Vikings offensive coordinator. Wade Phillips' son, actually. They have so many smart minds on that offensive side of the football in Minnesota. You talk about O'Connell actually calling the plays, Wes Phillips as the OC, and then you have Udinsky as the co-OC or the assistant OC, quarterbacks coach with him and Josh McCown. Feel like that's 4 guys that you really want to keep there, and it sounds like each one, aside from Wes Phillips, who's the actual coordinator, McCown's getting head coaching interviews. He could become an OC if he wants to leave as quarterbacks coach. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And Patriots continue on with this OC search. Defensive coordinator Terrell Williams sounds like he's coming in, and slowly but surely we will have an offensive coordinator. So I believe that's going to do it today for us here on a quick hitter Patriots Daily. If you missed it earlier, we interviewed Daniel Oyefusi from ESPN. The Cleveland Browns reporter told us all about the happenings and what happened with Mike Vrabel in Cleveland in his sabbatical gap year. Took a year off, went and learned abroad in his hometown or his home state of Ohio. So good stuff there from Daniel. If you missed it, back up and check that all out. We'll be back tomorrow for our Wednesday mailbag. As we always do, we'll ask for questions in the morning. So make sure to keep it locked in here on Patriots Press Pass. And until next time, thank you all for watching. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And we will see you next time. Peace out, everyone.